I'm Ed Chalmers, Head of Trading at Channel 4, and I'm joined today by Will Lavin, who is an Operations Executive at Starcom. Hey Will, really good to meet you in the flesh. I know we've spoken a number of times on the phone. Thanks very much for joining us today. We are going to talk widely about the topic of neurodiversity. We're probably going to jump into several themes, including the background in your childhood, how neurodiversity affected your education, and then probably more importantly for this audience is living with neurodiversity in your work life, and how you felt the industry has embraced that, or maybe they haven't. So I'm going to dive in right from the beginning.
Sure.
At what stage of your life did your parents, or indeed did you recognise that perhaps your speech wasn't developing at the same pace as the children around you? And what tactics did your parents use to address that?
So they realised right at the start, compared to other children my age, when they first started speaking, that I wasn't at that pace yet. And when I was quite delayed saying my first few words, they took me to see a specialist about. Someone pointed it out to my mum actually and said, I think you need to get your son checked out because he should be talking by now and he's not. So they went and took me to a specialist. They saw how severe my stammer was and they thought that I would never be able to speak properly.
So what age were you then when you were first getting help, I suppose is my first observation. And then at that age, were you in a primary, were you with kids who didn't have any neurodiversity, or had you been already sent somewhere else where they could help you?
So it first happened when I was 3 or 4, and then at primary school, we'll say your normal town primary school. So I was the only one with a stammer, but one of the only ones with a neurodiversity. And I was so it was only until secondary school where I went to a school for people with children with neurodiversities from a certain level. So you had to have a statement, say education statement plan from council that says they've got a certain amount of neurodiversity so that they need help.
And again, really for the benefit of the audience, how would you express what neurodiversity is?
Ooh. It's such a varied topic, but it's all basically to do with your brain, how your brain processes. So like it's dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, Tourette's, stammering. So it's all sort of how your mind works. And I've got dyslexia, dyspraxia, and then stammering. So and then very mild autism as well. So I took a few boxes on the neurodiversity front, but it's such a varied topic that I think lots of people don't realise that it all comes under one umbrella. Like I think people see it as separate things and not under one umbrella to which helps people understand it as a overall rather than having to learn every single different disability.
And in your early schooling years, how did that affect your day-to-day environment in terms of really both how you were treated by the other kids, and kids can be pretty miserable at the best of times, and also how accommodating were your teachers?
Kids are very direct, and I had lots of kids going, well, from a bullying perspective, like, why can't you say your own name, what's wrong with your voice? And one thing that I found hardest in school was the class register, because you'd say your name here, and then it got to my name being William right at the bottom of the list, and my name would just be, so people would say their names and then there would just be me stammering on my name, so the whole room would go silent, and then every kid would look at me and then it would go on to the next person. So it was tough, but I think it taught me so much in that process, but also how at such a young, and then because my stammer was worse then, I think it just made me way more conscious of it.
So you then leave primary, you move on to secondary school, and it's a different type of education for you.
Yeah.
So talk me through that.
So Sunnydown School has students. I think it has 80 students in total. So there's only around 10 people in each class, and it's a school specifically for people with learning difficulties. And the teachers are trained to teach subjects, are also to teach kids with with learning difficulties. And that school changed my confidence, but it also made me realise that I'm not the only one with a neurodiversity, because I was surrounded with other people who also had dyslexia, and it was a eye-opener to me to see other people may have had harder dyslexia than I did, but something else was better than mine. So it does open my eyes, and I think because of how small the school was, and you didn't really have that bullying, but you also learn about other types of neurodiversities. You may not have, like, I had someone in my class who had Tourette's, and I had never surrounded myself with someone with Tourette's before. So that was a new experience to me.
So as you exited that part of your life, what were you thinking about yourself as an individual in terms of your own personal confidence and your own personal capabilities as you looked forward?
It definitely changed me from a different mindset of going from primary to secondary. So I could see more of my future leaving secondary school. So I could see more of a perspective that lots of people have these, that it's not just me. And I think my mindset, because was going from a school of 70, 80 students to a college of 4,000 students, that was such a big deal in my brain. Because I'm like, whatever people in my class don't have a learning difficulty, then I knew at that stage where you couldn't tell I had a learning, like my stammer was on good form, my dyslexia was okay, I still have it now, but it was at that stage where I was more comfortable in that setting. But I think it was more scary knowing that I'm by myself now.
There was a final part, wasn't there, or a final aid before you
Yeah.
sort of jumped through into college, which was working with the Michael Palin Centre.
Yeah.
And why were they particularly helpful? You know, you've talked through where your confidence was as you came out of secondary education. So what role did the Michael Palin Centre have for you?
So I noticed between the period of leaving secondary school to the first bit of starting college that my stammer was getting really bad, and then at a stage that we hadn't seen it like that for a good 3 or 4 years. And we went to my GP and we said, what therapy can I get, or what course can I do? And because I was at that age where I wasn't covered by the NHS coverage, but because they only do it for children, like there's not really any support that's covered by the NHS for young adults with a stammer. So they said, we can refer you to the Michael Palin Centre. So we Googled the Michael Palin Centre, and we were, this is basically the creme de la creme of stammering therapy. And it was a 2-week intense course with 10 other people who stammer my age. And it was the first time that I had surrounded myself with people who stammer, but also the first time I learned actually what my stammer was and how every person's stammer, and like they had different people come in to talk to us. So one MP has a stammer, so he came in to talk to us going, so I talk in the front of the House of Parliament with my stammer. They basically want to show you that it's okay to stammer and you can still do. And that really changed my mindset of thinking I hate my stammer too. I love my stammer and it makes me who I am, and it really boosted my confidence to go back to college, because I was doing it in my summer break. I came back to college in September, and when I was a completely new person, because I was just way more confident in my own self than I was before, not knowing what people thought of stammering, but also what I thought people would portray my stammer.
And if you reflect, was that the inflection point? Was that when everything changed for you, where you went, right, I'm off now and I'm good to go?
Yeah, and the techniques that they taught me were techniques that I still use now, and it's a technique that I can use without people thinking it's a technique. So they basically teach you to talk really, really slowly, and then you speed it up to a pace where it helps you with your stammer, but also it sounds normal to the person who you're talking to. And it's a really... So it sort of just tricks your brain thinking, hold on, what's happening? And then it doesn't make you stammer. But that was the turning point of when I thought, why should I let my stammer hold me back from going into the industry that I wanted to go into? So why should I let it hold me back sharing my story about what it's like having a stammer?
So that's quite a nice link, Will. It's almost like you've done this before, right? So you've got your eyes on the advertising industry. Presumably you've sent your CVs off, and so talk me through the relationship of how you actually got into Starcom, from how they sort of appraised your CVs perhaps, and then that first very scary interview, that first interview where you're sitting here like you are now, using all the same techniques that you are now, and how you felt Starcom embraced that situation, tackled that situation, or possibly ignored it.
So I found this role through Multiverse, my apprenticeship provider, and I've always told them to put my stammer in any application, so it's always mentioned in my CV that I've got a stammer. When I say, can you, but they always check for me saying, would you like me to flag it as well as it being in your CV? Sometimes would say no, sometimes would say yes, but so I knew that this was a big assessment day, I said, flag it, just it gives it, because sometimes I was more nervous about my stammer in a job interview than I was about the actual job interview, because lots of people portray stammering as nerves, and if they see me stammer, they may think, oh, he may be too nervous for this role, talking to new people, and that's just a constant thought that's ticking through my head. So I got the job interview, and I think I mentioned it halfway through, so we had already done a team challenge, and I said, not sure if they flagged, but I've got a stammer, and they said, yeah, we did know, but me seriously not being able to tell that you've had one, and that just gave me a massive boost of confidence, ready for the next part of the interview, so I knew that they were accepting of it before I even was offered the job or even joining the company. And from that moment, when I got the job, the first thing I said to my line manager on my first day was, I've got a stammer. So if I'm saying words, that's just me. And then that's when I realised that they were so understanding and really noticed it. And not once in my 2.5 years being there, they've questioned my stammer. Well, they've not questioned it in a bad way. They've not treated it as a different feature. Different feature about me. They just see me as me, not as that person with a stammer.
And how have your clients been, Will? I mean, I probably know better than most that advertising can be quite a brutal environment in terms of how people communicate at some stages of your career. How have both clients behaved with you and also media owners?
It's been absolutely fine, but I've never. So if it's someone who I'm talking to on it every day, basis like media owner, wouldn't flag it unless certain people certain situations where I would flag some who wouldn't. And now my stammer's at a stage where I may have a call when I don't stammer at all. Just let it, because the worst thing that I want to do is make a scene, or not make a scene, but make people aware when they may not have to be aware of it in the first place. And within my role, within at my level, I don't have much client contact, so it's mainly media owners, but also senior leadership within Starcom. And it's just been fascinating for me, being new to the industry, thinking, oh, should I do this, or should I do that? And then, because one of the hardest things for me was picking up the phone, because of my stammer. H's can be really hard, especially to unknown people. So then my team used to say, when I first joined, when I was still quite new, hadn't really found my confidence in my role yet, they would go, just pick up the phone, type media, and we go, okay, sure. And that sort of thing. Like, there's so many hidden thought process that I go through before. So if I can just work on not having it on my thought process all the time, that's what helps me build my confidence in. So I'm not thinking about the stammering or the dyslexia without thinking of sending that email or making that call.
And 2.5 years in, do you think about any of those things now, or are you just like up and running and everything's
rare,
brilliant?
Just very rare occasion. Like, so if it's because of a pandemic, like making calls and you have to do that to talk to your team. Because if you've got something to ask, you just have to call your team. And that's one of the things that's helped me massively, is just having that confidence of just picking up the phone and just dialing a person. Which even before COVID, so I could just send an email on high importance, and rather than phone, we're trying to find excuses of not having to phone someone if I could try and do it on email. But now I've just learned just to pick up the phone or just have confidence in myself in writing that email, because, well, I know that I can do it.
If I reflect on everything you've told me today, I would say there are definitively moments in your life where either organisations or individuals have reached out to help you.
Yeah.
It seems to me that Starcom have managed the whole process brilliantly, both in terms of the recruitment process, the support they gave you to make you feel at ease during that recruitment, and as you've lived your career for the last 2.5 years, making sure that the environment that you're working in gives you everything that you need, and actually just people behaving decently, which is what you would expect and hope from most people anyway. What would your shout out be to other organisations in terms of whether they behave like Starcom or not, or what lookouts should they have in managing situations such as you've felt through your whole life, really?
I think just have that conscience. So if just trying to know about your team, but also make a comfortable setting for people to talk about it. Like, I've always felt comfortable from day one talking about it, and then I think one of the biggest things is lots of people don't see neurodiversity as a disability; they see it as a negative setback. So I think lots of employees or people want to join me they are afraid that ticking that box will hold people. They'll think, oh no, they've got dyslexia, we won't hire them, or like there's that big negative stigma around learning difficulties that I think lots of people don't realise how creative it is at the same time. Like, they say that the world's made by dyslexics, so Albert Einstein, Walt Disney, Steve Jobs had dyslexia. Like, so many big people have it, then I think lots of people still see it as a setback rather than a creative, bringing in a new way of diverse thinking within the team.
So presumably you're going to tell those organisations now not to ever think of it as a setback.
Yeah, never.
And to individuals who've got neurodiversity but are worried or anxious about expressing to companies and organisations that they have it, what would you say to them?
I think just feel comfortable talking about it, because you're not showing your true self. So because you may be getting feedback from your boss, like, why are your emails got so many spelling mistakes, or so if it's dyslexia, or like, so if you don't want to present because you may have a stammer. There's just so many things that I think. So I think will save yourself a lot of anxiety, but also you'll be open to talk about it more than I think to someone who you're comfortable with first, because you know your team very well. You've been working with them for 1 year, 6 years, 10 years. Then I think don't see it as a setback. See it as a relief, because you don't realise how much it affects your day-to-day life. And I think it may make sense to your team, and your boss may go, that may make sense now. So I just think, just be open and talk about it. Like, it's quite a new word, neurodiversity. So it's currently spoken about quite a lot within companies, which is great because it's making people more comfortable talking about it. And I think people seeing stuff like we're doing today, and just showing that it's it's okay to have a neurodiversity when it's companies are now looking to accommodate. Like they're all adapting every day to new things. Like there's new technology, there's new ways. So I think we're just learning new things and then just adapting to different topics as well. Yeah.
Well, today's been fascinating. I mean, really
thank
fascinating. It's been an absolute pleasure and a treat to talk to you.
Thank you, and you too.
I really hope that those who watch this video take a lot out of it, think about the lessons that they could learn from having listened to you, and apply those lessons within their own organisation. It almost goes without saying, I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
definitively follow your career, and I look forward to you being my boss one day.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.